All right, time to talk college football bowl games as well as a couple of playoff games. We are at that point of the year where now we have at least enough knowledge about who might be playing, who's not playing in some of these bowl games to break a few down for you. And of course, I'm pretty sure everybody's playing when it comes to the playoff games. So we're going to dive into it, of course, with three guys that you know very well here all season long as we welcome in the one and only the Penn, Ralph Michaels in the house, as well as Drew Martin and Rob Veno. Pleasure to see you guys. We're going to dive right into the game tonight here, Drew, with the New Orleans Bowl here. Talk to me about what we should be looking at when it comes to this Bearcats team here, Sam Houston State and Georgia Southern.
Yeah, how about the Bearcats, Joe? A 9-win season. I know Casey Keeler, he takes the Temple Owls job, but the offensive coordinator is the interim here, and they have a bunch of players in the portal, but a lot of those players in the portal are playing tonight, and their quarterback looks ready to rock. Watson, he was kind of a game changer. Like some of their losses mid-season when they weren't covering games, he was out. And when you look at the Georgia Southern side, Joe, not many opt-outs. However, they've been in 3 straight bowl games. They're 0-2 their last 2. And Clay Helton is just 1-6 against the spread in bowl games. That's kind of like a repeatable trend that I look at, how the head coach does against the spread with the extra preparation time coming into bowl season. They did beat Marshall. They beat JMU. They were leading against Boise State, but that was all earlier in the season. I actually think Sam Houston State here has a lot to play for. It's their first bowl game in program history, so the motivation is there. Overall, I like the Sam Houston State team. I think the Bearcats catching a number here. That would be the best bet for the show, if you will. But hey, if you want to sprinkle some on the money line, I think Sam Houston State wins this one in the Big Easy, the New Orleans Bowl tonight, Joe.
Oh, lighting it, getting it done with Sam Houston State. I tend to agree with you here, and it's going to be interesting. I think we're seeing under money come in this one as well tonight. So we get a little one bowl game here tonight. We got a whole bunch coming up, obviously, over the next, 72 hours or more, whether it's playoffs or this next one here, Ralph, which I find interesting. And you are looking at the Monday Bowl schedule, if I'm not mistaken, with Northern Illinois taking on Fresno. Is that the Potato Bowl, I believe? Which is going to make this very interesting for Fresno State. I would imagine where they hold the Potato Bowl, not going to be the best of weather this time of year here for Fresno State, nor do you have any idea who the quarterback for Fresno State in this game is going to be?
No, it's not going to be the starter, but it's not going to be the starter for Northern Illinois either. And I just want everyone to know, Joe, when the show started and you introduced me, I held a finger up.
Yes.
I had to move my setup, and that's probably the first time in 2 years that I started a show without having a pen in my hand. So while Drew was talking, I had to go run and get my pen. So mark that down, take a screenshot of me putting a finger up and not a pen to start the show. But I do like Northern Illinois here. Now, Northern Illinois has played a nothing schedule, one of the lightest schedules in all of college football. But Fresno has played a very weak schedule as well. Their schedule rank is number 90. And when I look at the checklists, I go through quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, O-lines, D-lines between the two teams. The only edges I give Fresno State, I give them a slight edge because they played at Boise, but that was 2 years ago. So there's only a handful of players that, played at Boise in their last game. They have a better special team schedule, and they played a little tougher schedule. So I look at and I think of, let's see, Mickey Keene, the starter for Fresno, is in the transfer portal, not playing. Ethan Hampton from Northern Illinois already signed with Wake Forest, so he can't play. So if we're missing both quarterbacks, which team is a better run team and which team has a better run D to stop the opponent? That is clearly both on the Northern Illinois side. When you're missing a quarterback, you have to look at the run and pass ratio. Northern Illinois runs the ball 61% of the time. Fresno State only runs the ball 47% of the time. So they are much more reliant on their quarterback. when you look at how each team did against their opponents and what their opponents averaged against everybody else, Fresno was 121 on offense and 49 on defense. Northern Illinois was 94 on offense, still 27 spots better than Fresno, and number 6 on defense, that is 43 spots better than the Bulldogs. Temperature, Joe, actually not too bad. It's going to be in the high 40s, 24% chance of rain. Winds right around 10 miles per hour. One more note I want to mention, Northern Illinois as a double-digit favorite was 5-2 over-under. They ran up the score. But if you eliminate the double-digit games, the double-digit favorite games, they're 1-5 over-under their other remaining games. And Fresno 0-3 over-under as a dog of 3 or more. I like Northern Illinois, and I like the under in the Potato Bowl.
All right, there you go. That game coming up on Monday, Northern Illinois and Fresno State. Should be a fun one, and we welcome in, of course, Rob Veno to the house. Don't forget, guys, make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We appreciate you hanging with us here as we get ready for just a bevy of bowl games, and we're going to talk a couple of college football playoff games coming up this weekend. But Rob, let's start tomorrow in Tampa at the Gasparilla Bowl. One of the weirdest lines we've seen all week, over the week and a half, where it's opened, where it's gone, all the buyback. I mean, we saw Florida as big as a 14 and a half point favorite. That looks like it's dropped all the way back down to 11 now. I don't know. I got no dropouts for Florida. I don't know who the hell's playing for Tulane. Not to mention that they might have just, call me crazy, might have just actually lost 2 games in which they look like they quit Tulane. What do you do with this team, and why is everyone backing them like this? Oh, I think he's on mute. Veno has muted us. There you go. Much better. Yes. I can't even blame Dan on this one. That was you, Rob. I really wanted to blame Dan, but I can't do it. Yeah.
You're off the hook, Dan. Joe, let me just say that, I kind of get the hype. Double-digit underdog, early bowl game. It's a general rule of thumb, an old adage. Where motivation is concerned, you would like to play the double-digit underdog. It's somewhat of a situational thing like everything else, and maybe somewhat a thing of the past. But I get it from the standpoint that John Sumrall, the head coach of Tulane, who was really rumored to go to North Carolina before Bill Belichick came in and interviewed and got that job, he stays, and it creates a motivational angle. It creates a cohesion type of angle for Tulane. But I would say this, I separate my agreement in that particular hype between offense and defense. I'm kind of pro-Tulane offense here, anti-Tulane defense in this one. And the pro-offense part might strike people as maybe the reverse of what your logic should be, because after all, Darian Mensah is out of there. Their starting quarterback transferred to Duke. Ty Thompson comes in. He's an ex-Oregon Duck. Highly touted kid, should be just fine in this situation. He's got all the tools necessary. You're talking about opt-outs here for Tulane. They're minimal and none on offense. Really, the only couple that they have are on the defensive front seven. So offensively, all of their guys are back. It's an explosive offense. Practice reports indicate they're highly motivated here. I would expect that they could move the football and score. They were dynamic offensively this year, both aspects, rushing and passing. The problem for them, to me, and you talked about it a little bit at the end, is on the defensive side of the football, where, again, they lose a couple transfers in the front seven, but those last 2 games, you've got a college football playoff potential berth on the line. You're a 13-point home favorite to Memphis, and you get run out of your own building. They gave up 236 rushing yards in that game, came back the following week with an ACC championship on the line, AAC championship on the line. Against Army, give up 335 yards rushing, get wire to wired in that game as well. Army averages nearly 6 yards per pop. So again, 13-point favorites, can't play defense against a good offensive team, come back with a chance to win a conference title, can't play any defense against the run. If you start looking real close at Tulane, you'll find that every good offense they played did damage. I mean, their statistics defensively are so skewed. It's kind of crazy. You find this in a lot of situations, but with them, they played North Texas, which can move the football, right? North Texas got 525 total yards against this team, 449 through the air. K-State's kind of a step up in class for Tulane. K-State averaged 7 yards a play, 7.1 to be exact against this team. UL Lafayette, best team in the Sun Belt to some. They got 413 total yards against Tulane, 6.6 per play. All three of those teams, they scored 37, 34, and 33. So again, I agree with Tulane from an offensive standpoint, but defensively against this Florida team, they come in just as highly motivated off of that 3-game win streak to end the season. Billy Napier did quite a job turning that around. DJ Lagway should have a field day against this particular defense from what we've seen by other good offenses against them. I would say that the Gators right now are probably as good offensively as they've been all year in both aspects. So to me, you're looking at a game being played between two offenses with a total of 49.5. Seemed a little bit low. For Florida, real quick, I'll just say that even in those victories to end the season, a couple of those defense wasn't great. They gave up 390 yards to LSU and 464 to Mississippi, which in typical Mississippi form turned 464 total yards into 17 points. I don't know that that's anything to do with the Florida defense. I think it's a lot to do with the Mississippi offense because that was a repetitive trait all season long. Tulane's good enough to score here. The weather's good here. Florida's more than good enough to score here. I have to say that 49.5 to me just seemed like an absolute bargain. I think there's a lot of value in that particular number. So give me over, Joe, over 49.5 in the Tulane, Florida Gasparilla Bowl.
Yeah, I like that look as well. I just it feels like Florida is got new life here with Napier and all those kids and starters, Veno, that you alluded to, not leaving Florida, looking forward to coming back. It's in their backyard. Something tells me we're going to get a lot of Gator fans at the Gasparilla Bowl here in Tampa. So it should be advantage Florida, and you're right, should be a ton of points in this game as well. All right, guys, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Quick look at the chat room. Big shout out to Michael Hibbs in the house, Titan CT, Big Daddy, FB Coach 13. Looks like he might be on the sidelines next to Billy Napier, he's saying. Maybe he's going to be running the defense there. We'll have to find out there. Big Daddy, always a pleasure. By the way, I just want to mention, Dan, the chat room, all taking bets that it was your fault that Rob was muted. So we'll see how that, we'll see if that goes. We do have, however, a whole lot of college football playoff action still to come. We're going to take a roundtable approach here to the one coming up tomorrow, the first one between Indiana and Notre Dame. We want to get these guys' opinions. And of course, if you have any questions in the chat, or if you're watching this on the replay, drop them in. Drop them in the comment section. Drop them in the chat. We'll ask and answer as many as we can. As Drew, what do you think, man? I keep hearing from people, Indiana is the public dog of the week. Some people say Tennessee. Some people feel in Indiana. It's interesting that these two teams are less than 200 miles apart, these two campuses, and it's been 33 years since they played one another. So this feels like big brother, little brother. The question is little brother up for the challenge here? How are you approaching this game here tomorrow night?
Well, I mean, Joe, I'm really excited about it. You know, as a lifelong college football fan, the first college football playoff on an on-campus site, and in front of Touchdown Jesus, South Bend, Indiana, the in-state battle. It's got everything behind it. Man, I'll tell you this, Joe. Both of these two teams have kind of been wagons. You know, the Notre Dame profile as a sports bettor to lose to Northern Illinois and then go on the run that they have, it's just such a reminder to me to pay attention when that happens, you know, because you can make so much money in this business doing, you know, just recognizing things like that. And then Notre Dame going on the run that they did, bringing it into this game against a Hoosier squad that has also, you know, been a great team to bet overall. I mean, it's a great game coming into it. Sidewise, I think there's arguments for both squads. We got to bring in the weather, though, Joe. And that's what I was just looking up here to get the most up to date. It does look like upper 20s with some wind, possible flurries. I don't think that's really great weather for scoring points. In fact, it is not. And to bring in the fact, you know, playoff atmosphere, you're playing obviously to win in advance. I think that brings in the fact of, you know, play good defense with this weather behind you. I guess you could make the argument, you know, towards the Hoosiers. I mean, Curtis Rourke, he is a Canadian, and, you know, he's obviously got experience playing in cold weather from his days at Ohio. So maybe that brings in the fact, look towards Indiana. I just think this Notre Dame team has been such a wagon. Instead, Joe, I would look at actually this under. I think the defense has come to play. I think we, you know, if you're into betting props, I think there's going to be more punts than many would expect. So I would look for a defensive battle here, Joe, and I would look towards the under.
Looking for the under. Drew, kind of hard for me to look any other way but the under. I definitely think the defenses are going to show up and show out. And Ralph Michaels joining us here in the house. And Ralph, it's kind of crazy, right? Less than 200 miles apart, and they play once every like 4 decades or something along those lines there. So what are we looking at here? Is Indiana tired of being told, sorry, we can't fit you on the schedule? And do they give Notre Dame a run for their money?
I do like Notre Dame here, and I also like the under. I agree with Drew. And the thing that stands out to me is this. The Irish have played 7 teams with a winning record. Now, they haven't played a great schedule because a lot of those winning teams are lower echelon teams. But for the teams they've played, they finished number 11, number 2, and number 5 in yards per game diff, points per game diff, and yards per play diff. Again, 7 teams that currently have a winning record, number 11, number 2, and number 5. The Hoosiers have played 2 teams this year that currently have a winning record, and they are number 78, number 73, and number 78 in yards per play diff, points per game diff, and yards per play, yards per game, and points per game. Against those winning teams, again, only 2 of them, they were number 133 in scoring offense and number 33 in yards per play. When I look at the Irish defense, they've held 7 opponents to a season low or a season number 2 low. And on the season, they finished number 7, holding their opponents to 86 yards per game, less than their opponents averaged against everybody else. Notre Dame's pass defense doesn't get talked about much, but their current defensive quarterback rating this year is 94.1. Not only is that number 1 in the country, that is the best defensive quarterback rating in college football since the 2016 Florida team. You look at the Hoosiers' numbers. Yes, they're impressive, but they started the season 7-0. Their average line, they were an 18-point favorite in their first 7 games on average, and they averaged 513 yards per game. In their last 5 games, their average line was minus 6.4, and they averaged only 335 yards per game. That's 180 yards per game less than the first 7 games when they played those weaklings. And if you steal from your son, I don't think it's considered stealing, but I did steal this stat from him. The Hoosiers' rush defense, on paper, incredible. 71 yards per game and 2.5 yards per carry. But listen to the rush offenses the Hoosiers have faced. Number 104, an FCS team number 131, number 106, number 118, number 123, number 93, number 110, number 69, number 59, and number 110. So they faced no rush offenses in the top 58 this year. By the way, Notre Dame is number 10. Clearly, I'm on the Irish. I like the under as well. And just so you guys can tell the difference, we're going to talk about Penn State in a minute here. Notre Dame Stadium holds about 77,000. The cheapest seat to get in tomorrow night, over $500. Penn State holds 107,000 people. You can get into their playoff game tomorrow at noon for under $40. So it shows you the size of the stadium matters. And again, the Irish is a high price ticket.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy there. All right, good stuff there, Ralph. Rob Veno, we've heard a couple of votes for the under here. Ralph likes Notre Dame as a side. Where do you fall here in this game here tomorrow night?
Well, it's interesting because I kind of agree with a lot of the stuff that both guys ahead of me said. I think first things first, Joe, did Indiana learn anything from the game in Columbus? Because that's your comp game here. Ohio State's defense, absolutely tremendous. Notre Dame's defense, Ralph kind of laid it out, Drew kind of laid it out, absolutely tremendous. In that game in Columbus, IU gets 151 total yards, 83 and 68, if you're looking for the breakdown of rushing and passing. They could do absolutely nothing. They scored the first touchdown of that game. Ohio State caught on, and that was the end of that. So what did head coach Cignetti learn? What did the Indiana players learn? I would say that in that game, there was probably a little bit of deer in the headlights out of Indiana and not necessarily out of the coaching staff. I think Cignetti and the coaches, been there, done that at a lower level, but been there, done that. But the players just had not been on that type of stage before, walking in end of season, conference title really on the line. So you have to ask yourself, are they really just a product of a poor schedule, or were they a little bit frightened in that Ohio State game? We'll see. But to Ralph's point, because I was going to bring it up about the rushing of Notre Dame here, and we're going to find out if the trench play of Indiana is any good whatsoever, because Notre Dame has gone for over 200 rushing yards in 8 of their games. And this tandem that they have, which probably is the least talked about running tandem across the country, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, 7.1 yards per carry, 7.3 yards per carry. Both of these guys average over 7. And then you throw into that mix Riley Leonard, a dual threat quarterback. It's a difficult rushing offense to stop. And keep in mind, Ohio State didn't have that. I mean, Will Howard is not necessarily a guy you incorporate into the running game. He's got running capability, he's got mobility, but he's not necessarily a guy that you draw up plays for where Riley Leonard is. So Indiana's got their hands full. I don't know that the weather plays as much of a factor in the total. It's cold, but there's no wind. There's really not going to be anything in the way of precipitation that's going to hurt the game at all. What I think happens in these cold weather games, guys, is that after a while, you're banging pads, it starts to hurt a lot more in the cold and people back away from tackling. I don't think that side would be Notre Dame. I think that side would be Indiana because they just don't have the depth of Notre Dame. So perhaps they get worn down second half, which would lead you to a play on Notre Dame. In the beginning of this, when I first looked at numbers, I thought I was going to be on the over here because in my mind, I thought, you know what, Cignetti's going to come up with something better and the team will perform better offensively than they did in Columbus. Just not so sure that's true right now, the more I think about it. Notre Dame, in years past, they get to a point like this and they're a complete flop, mostly under Brian Kelly. But to me, Notre Dame's got a shot this year, guys. I don't know that the separation between Notre Dame and the number 1 seed Oregon is as big as it was when Notre Dame was getting trounced by SEC teams. Home crowd, I'd probably say slight lean here towards Notre Dame. People have bet the over here, though, Joe. I mean, it's going up 51, maybe to 51, 51 and a half, up to 52, 52 and a half. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised either way on the total, but I think Notre Dame should come out of this in pretty good shape.
Yeah, even seeing 52s showing up here now as well in that one. And that's going to be our first college football playoff game. That is going to kick off tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern time at Notre Dame. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We got one other game that we're going to break down in the playoffs. It's an interesting one as well because I don't know which version of SMU we're going to get here, guys. The one that played in the second half against Clemson or the one that played in the first half of Clemson here. And Drew, they certainly look like they belong, and certainly you can say what you want about the schedule, but they certainly showed up and showed out, almost came back and beat Clemson in that game. What are you thinking of their chances here? 8.5, I'm seeing 53.5 now. SMU got a chance of keeping this thing close, maybe even pulling out the outright upset?
They got a chance, Joe. It's not going to be with my money, though, man. I think Penn State, I think the Nittany Lions are the side here. Talk about schedule. I just look at this SMU team. What was their best win this season? I mean, Louisville? Was it TCU? I mean, there's just not a lot of meat on the bone here. And I know a lot of people have been talking about that, the ACC getting 2 teams in. Look, if their quarterback Jennings, if he has a day, they got a shot. Yeah. I mean, I would give him like a puncher's chance. I just think Penn State's the more talented team. I mean, top to bottom of the roster. I think they're going to win in the trenches here. It is at home. Another game with, cold. It looks like 20s, and this one does have some wind. It looks like wind gusts up to as much as 30 miles per hour. And I mean, obviously it hinders both offenses, but I just feel like Penn State's going to kind of run the ball down their throat, if you will, Joe. And I think they win by double digits here. If you're looking to kick off your Saturday, I think it's the Nittany Lions, man. That's the way I would go after this one. I know James Franklin, he's had some trouble in some big games, but SMU isn't a top 5 team here. They're not named Ohio State. They're not named Michigan. So I think Penn State wins. I think they advance. I think they cover this. I think they cash the ticket. I would go on the Nittany Lions, Joe.
Oh, like an all right Penn State. I mean, kind of hard to argue. They're 8.5-point favorites, right, Drew, for a reason here in Happy Valley. Ralph, I'm wondering how much is home field advantage going to mean in these first round of the very first playoff game, right? 12 playoff teams here for the first time. Home field advantage, wondering how big a role that's going to play in this one. And is it Penn State or pass for you as well?
It is. I give Penn State a 3-point home edge. Had they been playing at night at a whiteout, I would have given them a 4.5-point home edge. So I think the noon scheduling hurts them. But again, this team has been so hungry to get to the next level. I don't care if it's noon or at night. I look at, I think Drew brought up a good point. What is SMU's best win? Well, I'm going to take that one step further. Yeah, they went 5-0 on the road this year. They played at Nevada, probably in front of 20,000. They played at Louisville, 50,000. Stanford, 40,000. Duke, they probably had 30,000. Virginia, they probably had 30,000 on the road. So you're going to have this SMU team walking into a stadium with 106,000 people in a complete whiteout. I think that is deer in the headlights look. So that has me liking Penn State early, especially first quarter, first half. You look at the strength of schedule to quantify how weak of a schedule SMU played. Well, they did play an ACC schedule, but they were ranked number 41. Penn State has played a top 20 schedule. I have them at number 16. When you look at season-to-date stats, Penn State plus 167 yards per game, SMU plus 117. When you look at Penn State's 2 losses, the 2 of the best teams in the country, Ohio State and Oregon. Oregon, again, a neutral game. Ohio State was a home game. But in those 2 games that they lost, they were only minus 18 yards per game. Not a bad situation. You look at SMU, they were outgained by 75 yards against BYU. That TCU win, they were plus 4 turnovers. That's the only reason they beat TCU. They were outgained by over 100 yards per game. And let's remember this. First, I want to make sure a team knows how to win as a favorite. So their ATS number is very good, but they've won 19 straight as a home favorite of 7 or more, saying that Franklin has him ready. He rarely gets upset in this role. SMU As a dog of 3 or more, 1-7 straight up. So they're in a position where they haven't pulled the upsets. You know, I look at SMU and Penn State. When you break in the strength of schedule, I have Penn State with the much better running game. They're averaging over 202 yards and 5.3 yards per carry. Again, against a better schedule. SMU 176 and 4.5. On the rush defense, Penn State has given up a few yards more, 104 yards per game, but 3.2 yards per carry. You know, a lot of that came in, the final game against Oregon, which was a neutral game, played 183, and at USC they gave up 189. But at home, they're allowing 2.8 yards per carry, and that includes playing Ohio State, Washington, Maryland, UCLA. SMU allowing 2.7 again, but a much weaker schedule. I do like Penn State. I like Penn State early, first quarter or first half, and I do lean under first quarter or first half in this matchup as well.
Interesting, Rob Veno. We got home field. This is kind of your neck of the woods here. It certainly should be advantage Penn State, but correct me if I'm wrong. All the pressure is on Franklin and Penn State here. If I'm the SMUs of the world, I'm playing with house money here, aren't I? And they've already shown, I think, that they can certainly hang with some of the, the power schools, if you will, some of the blue bloods here in college football. Can they hang in this one, really, is the question.
Yeah, I think where Penn State is concerned, Joe, the word pressure, basically, I would define it in Penn State's case and in James Franklin's case is when you're playing somebody that you believe is as good or better than you.
There you go.
They don't think SMU is as good as they are. And so I think the pressure's out the window. The chance to dominate here exists. I agree with everything that these guys just said. I'll take it a step further. You know, for what it's worth, in that Clemson game, and I know SMU came back, but Kevin Jennings looked like a deer in the headlights. We've used that phrase now 3 times. I got to think of something different here to say, but he looked scared, absolutely scared of that Clemson pass rush. Now, they turned it into points in the second half, but here comes the Penn State pass rush with Abdul Carter. And if this game does start to get into a ground game because of wind factor, Drew mentioned maybe 30-mile-per-hour gusts. These two guys, I won't say this often either, that I trust Drew Aller as the better quarterback over Jennings. Jennings a little too erratic as a passing quarterback. And this is an offense under Rhett Lashley that, guys, it's really predicated on the rush. 56% of the play calling went to the run this year, 44% to the pass. Kevin Jennings is used to being able to outrun defenses. He's not going to outrun the speed on this defense. Again, when you have Carter, when you have Durant, when you have King, these guys in the front 7 that can run anybody down, it's problematic to me for SMU when they take the field and find out they can't run the football. Where are they going? Penn State's a team that has 33 sacks. I'll give you another quick note here. SMU has 40 sacks. 20 of those 40 were in 3 games this year. They got Virginia 9 times. They got Cal and Stanford somewhere between 5 and 4, but whatever. 20 sacks in 3 games out of 40. Penn State, they allowed the least amount of sacks in the Big 12 this year, and the Big 12 has some fierce pass rushes. The Big 10. So you're talking about a team that protects their quarterback, only allowed 12 sacks all year long. You're talking about a defense that's going to get after Kevin Jennings. I think SMU's turnover prone in this game. I think Penn State's very confident in this game. The ground attack here, again, figures to be in Penn State's favor. And, if they get a couple turnovers here, I was actually a little surprised that this number was 8.5. I was expecting something more in the double-digit range in this game. Credit to SMU for what they've done, but this is still a step up in class. They probably need a couple more recruiting classes to get to the elite level that teams like Penn State are on talent-wise. So for me, it's going to be Penn State here, minus 8.5. I just think that they've been hurt by a couple of teams on defense this year. They got hurt by the passing of USC, and then they got hurt by the passing of Dylan Gabriel. But SMU doesn't have that type of pass attack, and they don't have the type of balance and trench play to warrant the same type of consideration. So give me Penn State. I think they win pretty big here.
RH8 on Instagram is with you there. Veno says Penn State is going to be smashing SMU. And I think Bob has got a great question in here, which leads to at least one other question. And I love this because, and I think it's a fair question, Bob. He says, if we're all talking about reasons why the underdog really shouldn't be in the game, why did they expand the playoffs to 12 teams then? Well, the answer is pretty simple, Bob. Money. That's number one. Number two, he brings up a good point here, Drew, from the standpoint of in this first round, is it all chalk? Is there one underdog that can actually win outright here, or should we just be looking to round robin all the damn favorites?
It's interesting, Joe. I mean, because I guess just the way that the structure is, it sets up, you could make the argument that the BCS would have actually been a better format, particularly this year. Like you wouldn't have been able to complain as a college football fan if it was Oregon versus Georgia in one game for the national championship. It actually probably would have worked out better. To your point, I mean, if you're looking at an underdog in the first round, I don't know, man. Maybe I would probably just select Tennessee, but I don't even like the Volunteers, especially going up to the Horseshoe. Yep. I'm with you, Joe. I think all the favorites win. I mean, maybe go with a money line parlay favorite here in the first round. I wouldn't talk you off of it. And, we heard Ralph bring up the point of ticket prices. Joe, one thing that the college football playoff, I think, needs to change is that second round needs to be at home on campus, because asking these fan bases to go 3, if not 4 trips in a month, we're borderline. One of the best things about college football is the atmosphere in the games, with the band and everybody, it's almost unmatched across other sports. I'm worried about a semifinal game where it's just the atmosphere isn't there, because these fans are not going to be able to travel that many times in a row. So I think these second round games need to be on campus as well, Joe.
I like that look there, Drew. Listen, I think it's supposed to be college athletics, right? It's supposed to be amateur, students. Yeah, expecting these fans to hop on and buy tickets and travel all over the country is a little out of control. But then the question becomes, Ralph, you talked about it. That's a significant advantage for Penn State being at home in this game against SMU. Home field advantage, once we get to the second round, would be pretty interesting to say the least, because unlike the March Madness bracket, Ralph, where the top 4 teams in the country are the top 4 are the number 1 seeds in each bracket, right? That's not what we have here. The 4 teams that got the bye are not the 4 best teams in the country in any way, shape, or form. They just happen to be seeded that way, which would make home field advantage in the next round very interesting as well. But are you going to, is there a dog here, Ralph? Or why shouldn't I just round robin all the favorites in this one, give myself 6 combinations of 2 teams, 4 combinations of 3, and bet them all to win here, unless you think there's a dog that can outright win this?
Well, I lean Ohio State, but that would be the game to me. I mean, that to me is the 2 closest placed teams, Tennessee and Ohio State. But I would say this, Joe. What you said first was correct. You said money. I'm going to throw out the conspiracy here. There is no way in hell Boise is a top 4 team in college football. In fact, if Penn State wins, I make Penn State a double-digit favorite. But do they want Boise at home in front of 30,000 people, or do they want Penn State at home in front of 107,000 people to make the money? I mean, if someone comes up there and wins a game, they don't want those teams playing in 20,000 or 30,000 people, Drew. And I think that's the reason it won't happen, because Boise would be hosting a game against Penn State next week, and they need to make sure they have enough tickets sold in the right setting for the TV people to put on the production they want. That's why I don't think that'll ever happen. So, the other thing would be, being a top 4 seed would even be more important, because let's say a road team pulls the upset in game 1, then they have to go on the road at another setting in game 2 against a team that hasn't played And sometimes those teams haven't played in 20 some days. So don't think it'll happen. I'm not a fan of the round robin parlaying, but this is a unique situation. And if anything weird's going to happen, it's going to be the first year. And so if people want to try it, again, no arguments with it. It makes sense to me. I just won't be doing it with my money.
I mean, Veno, we're talking about $3. The least is a $3 favorite. It's $3 too, and I think Texas is the biggest favorite at $4.75. So I'm looking at Ohio State, Notre Dame at $3. I'm looking at Penn State at $3.25, and I'm looking at Texas as minus $4.75. None of these are pick'em games, and they're all at home with the team that is already a $3 and $4 favorite. And it makes sense. I mean, why am I screwing around with spreads at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I think, the obvious underdog choice here, and people lay out really good cases for the outright victory by Tennessee in this one, because you don't know if Ryan Day and Ohio State are going to shrink one more time in the moment. Of course, it only usually happens against Michigan. It doesn't happen against non-conference people, but you have Josh Heupel against Chip Kelly. That's a pretty good offensive battle there. You have Tennessee's defense, and you have Ohio State without two starting offensive linemen, and they can't run the ball anyway. So it's if you're going to make a case, you're making your case for Tennessee. If you don't believe Tennessee can go to Columbus and win, then putting all four together, all four favorites together, probably makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you what, though, real quick here, I'll just expand on what Ralph said.
Sure.
Arizona State, no way in hell they're a top 4 team in the nation either.
No.
So Boise and Arizona State, and they'd almost be better off this season, to Drew's point about letting the second round games be on home fields. They would be more competitive, in my estimation. If Texas had to go to Arizona State, line comes way down in that instance. If Penn State has to go to Boise State, line comes way down. And both of those fan bases travel like mad. Texas would probably invade Sun Devil Stadium. And Penn State, they don't care where they have to go. Those people are going, even if it's to Boise, Idaho. So this is a unique situation here. I think they'll correct this thing with the seeding this offseason, which they should. But we'll see how it goes. As for the round robin favorites, if you don't think Tennessee can win, it's probably an easy play, because Texas should not lose to Clemson either.
I mean, it's funny because that would have been the one game that I went to and said, Clemson, to me, I mean, people are betting that game, Drew, like they already know what the score is. It's, Texas by 1,000,000, but call me crazy. I've seen Sarkisian below games like this in the past. And if who's got more experience in this than Dabo Sweeney and Clemson here feels like. So you're telling me of all the teams, Indiana's got a better chance of going to Notre Dame and winning. SMU's got a better chance of going to. You're telling me Clemson has got no shot at beating Texas in Texas?
No, I'm not telling you that. No way.
I mean, but that's it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, because they're betting this game like they already know the outcome.
I just hearing you tee it up like that, Joe, I actually maybe changed my mind here towards Clemson. I mean, Texas has no top 25 wins. But seriously, look at their schedule. It's amazing. They just played an SEC schedule, and they didn't beat one top 25 opponent. I mean, what is their best win? Seriously. I mean, they beat a Florida Gator team with a third-string quarterback in there. I don't know what their best win is. And to tell you the truth, to ask them to lay, 12 here, could they run away with it? Absolutely. But I don't know, man. I mean, this Clemson team, they might be riding under the radar here. If you're making the case for SMU, I almost think it's correlated with Clemson here. If you're looking to take a shot, maybe like a home run type play here, how about Clemson? Maybe a little SMU. I actually like Clemson more than I like SMU. So, I mean, Dabo Sweeney definitely has the experience here. And Texas, there's not a lot of meat on that bone, man. They played probably the easiest SEC schedule that I can remember off the top of my head. And they went 0-2 against Georgia. So, man, I wouldn't go against Clemson here.
All right, you maybe changed my mind, Drew. Now I'm putting Clemson in the round robin. Ralph, what are you thinking here? I saw the pen getting flying up over there. I mean, listen, either all the favorites win or we're going to get upsets galore here, one way or the other. If the first year is going to be chalky, I don't know. I would have thought in college football, Ralph, these spreads would have been a little bit closer. The money lines would have been a little bit closer. But, here we are, and opportunity present itself. But should Texas be the biggest favorite in this first round? Should they be that big a favorite, Ralph?
I think it just came down to if Clemson doesn't beat SMU and they only beat them, on a last-second play, they're not in the playoffs. So I think it comes from that mentality that you're playing the team that got in last. Joe, I ran the numbers real quick. If you bet all 4 chalk on the money line, one unit pays 1.96.
Okay.
If you knock out one of the minus 280s and play the 450, the 320, and the 280, it plays about 1.2 units. So that just gives you an idea. If you don't want a round robin and you want some action on the games, you can bet 1 unit to basically pick up 2 units, parlaying all 4 money line chalk.
Yeah, I got it minus 130 if you just put, let's say, Penn State and Notre Dame together. I'll assume that it'll be a little more expensive there because Texas is an absurd situation there. But if you put Notre Dame together with Ohio State, for instance, you're still at probably minus 130, 135, somewhere in that ballpark there if you just wanted to go with 2 teams. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I am just skeptical, Rob Veno, of $3 and $4 favorites in college football with teams that have all earned the right to be here. I don't think anybody's got a gripe. I think that for 12 teams, my biggest fear was, this is going to be a train wreck because we're going to get teams that don't deserve to be here. They're going to be I think the 12 teams that deserve to be here, crazy enough, are here. I don't think anybody got screwed outside of that, although South Carolina fans might argue.
They might argue, but they wouldn't be right. I mean, congratulations. You played the last month of the season really, really well. But you know what, Joe? When you look at the quarterbacks in this playoff, I mean, honestly, when you were talking about Texas just now, we didn't cover that game here today, but I would express the same concerns about Quinn Ewers as I do about Drew Aller, as I would about Cade Klubnik going into Texas, as I would about Nico Iamaleava. The quarterback play, Drew Aller, the quarterback play in this tournament, in this playoff tournament, is not exceptional. And when you look at it, I mean, if you're looking for the top tier, it's probably Dylan Gabriel, obviously, comes as the best. Carson Beck is sporadic at best. When he's really good, he's really good. When he's really bad, he's really bad. There's nothing consistent about the guy. Riley Leonard is a hit or miss passer, better runner. I mean, is Curtis Rourke the next best quarterback? Is the freshman at Arizona State the next best quarterback? I mean, it's crazy. The quarterback play here isn't great. I think that's what makes it such a tight race. If they had seeded this thing correctly, then we wouldn't have these types of lines that we have. But, again, I personally don't see Clemson going into Texas and winning that game, although Quinn Ewers hasn't been. He's more hype than substance for sure.
I agree. And Bob in the chat, I did not say best 12 teams. I said the most deserving 12 teams.
Yeah.
They deserve to be here. The 12 teams in it deserve to be here because they handled their business. Bottom line there. So I got to tell you, it's going to be a fascinating first go at this here with all of these favorites. Not the greatest of quarterbacks. It's going to be very, very interesting in addition to the bowl season. And Drew, speaking of bowl games, what do you got locked, loaded, ready to roll for clients over at your page at WagerTalk.com?
Absolutely, Joe. It's been a great run, man. The football sides have been cashing at a high number really over the last month. Got a 4%er up for Thursday night football here in the NFL. The Broncos and the Chargers AFC West battle here. 2 playoff teams current in the AFC, and then got a 5%er going on Friday in college football. The first 5% of bowl season. So those are the two I got up right now. Be in with the Saturday card, college basketball going strong as well. And then NFL Sunday will be up by the end of the day as well. So got that 4%er tonight, 5%er on Friday. And we got that special, Joe. What if you buy January, you get the rest of December for free. So that might be the best option there, guys. We got a bunch of sports rolling right now. Great time to be a sports bettor. Check it out, Drew Martin, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, I love that, Drew. I mean, the simple fact that you can get for $2.99, you're basically getting all of January, all of the bowl games through the national championship, all of this, the rest of December. Plenty of action going on here. And Ralph, you locked, loaded, ready to roll here coming up this weekend?
On a great run as well. I've got a NBA college football twofer for tonight. I've got a 4% playoff game loaded. I got a 5% teaser in the NFL for Sunday. My teasers are on a 19-4 run. So again, the $2.99 is the way to go. Joe, I went to the database when we were talking. Just FYI, since 2012, college football home teams as a favorite from -7 to -14. So all four are in this range. Both teams with a win percentage over 75%. The home team has actually only won 70.4%, and the home team has only gone 43% against the spread, 65-86. Again, that's since 2012.
Now you're going to make me put all the damn dogs together, Ralph. Stop going to the damn database. Rob Veno, how about it, man? Lock, loaded, ready to roll here tonight? What do you got for us?
Lock, loaded, ready to roll, Joe. 4% best bets in college football action. For Friday, for Saturday, already loaded. A play on tonight's game, college football bowl action up as well. The month of December has been kind so far, up 24.3 units all told. And college football has been the biggest part of that. It's carrying the weight here, up 50% of that is due to college football this month. So, looking forward to the remainder of the bowl season for sure, and the playoff action as well. And as Drew and you mentioned, the WagerTalk special offers, whether it be the bowl package itself or whether it be the 2 weeks free. If you purchase January, that's they're both absolute bargains here with the amount of football and with the amount of plays that'll be going up here. I will make note real quick for all watching that where 5% blue chips are concerned, in my case in bowl season, I always do three. 1 5% favorite, 1 5% underdog, and 1 5% total. They're all three coming over the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout. Once again, WagerTalk.com.
Love it. Way to go, Rob Veno, Drew Martin, Ralph Michaels, all here for you guys to partner up with and make it a very profitable end to 2024 and get ready for the new year. Plenty of bowl action, plenty of college football playoffs still to talk about. Of course, we'll be back again next week here as we get ready for, well, that second round of these playoffs in college football. We'll have much more to discuss. But in the meantime, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We appreciate you guys there. Bob Poole, Big Daddy, Titan CT in the house. You guys rock. We appreciate it. Also, Sam Kim, Lester Diamond going at it. Jay over there in the YouTube Shorts feed. We appreciate it as always, guys. We'll be back. College basketball talk coming your way. Live stream here in just a couple of minutes, so don't go too far. College football, the kickoff show. We'll be back again next week. A very happy and safe holiday to you and your family, guys. We'll see you again, hopefully shortly here for some college basketball. Good luck, guys, with your plays. We'll see you then.